Actually, that clock's really off.
5 minutes.
No, look at the hour.
That's really so long.
That's fine.
Time is 5:47. I'll call this Finance Advisory Committee meeting to order. Town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of these territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Motion to approve the agenda. From favor, opposed, that carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None. First, we have received minutes from the meeting of January 23rd, 2024. Someone move to receive that for information. Ron, Michael, any comments, questions on minutes? All in favor? Opposed, that carries. No delegations. We have two matters for consideration. First is 7.1. Memorandum from Financial Management Advisor regarding the 2024-2025 Finance Advisory Committee work plan. Should we do that 1 second?
Sure.
I
It's
didn't
only
read
gonna
it.
take 2 minutes.
It's only gonna take 2. Does everyone just want to get it out of the way? Okay. Someone with a recommendation? Receive, further action is appropriate. Ron and Michael, Ron, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, since on the January 23rd event, the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame said that they didn't have their 2023 financial statement.
Past that.
All right, I thought this was a.
No, we did the
Oh, we went
minutes.
through that? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll talk to something about
Yeah, we'll bring it up after, if you want on the new business or not.
that. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so this one is for the committee work plan. Okay? All those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Next, we have a memorandum from Financial Management Advisor regarding budget review of the Aurora Cultural Center. Where are we starting?
Yeah, I'll quickly introduce our friends here from the Cultural Center. So they've provided financial information on their operations, which covers years 21, 22, and 23. So I'm going to turn it over to your team to walk us through any key elements and questions.
Excellent. So Suzanne Haynes, Executive Director for the Aurora Cultural Center. I'm joined here today with John McFavery, who's the President of the Board, and Michelle Oki, who is our Treasurer. We provided a document with the 3 years of active history plus the budget for 2024 with notes to that budget. So what I would like to do is go through the 2023 year. You've seen the previous years in our presentations, and really note where significant variances happened throughout the year. 2023 was our first year where we were back to full operations after COVID, where we could have all in-person activities. And we also, the board made a decision to engage a fundraising professional to help with our fundraising, as we knew that we were going to need to have more fundraising and be able to achieve our future goals in 2024 through 2026. I'll talk about that part when we get there, because you'll see some variances there. The first significant variance is on our displacement costs. So we always budget based on what we think the programming will look like and how often we'll be producing in the community. And we were able to save quite a bit of money. And in fact, it's since been reconciled further. And the number that you have here, the 138, is actually 129 when we come to our actuals at the end of the year. So even further savings on what we actually charge back to the town for those displacement costs. In terms of the next one is in our grants. We were very successful in our Canadian heritage grants. Those come from a number of different sources, but the significant variances in grants that we received to reactivate and re-energize our audience as a result of our COVID activities and what we needed. So there were a number of programs that we were eligible for and we were successful around, and they included helping the audience, helping with promotion, helping to encourage and motivate audiences to come back, around re-engaging those audiences, and one significant grant for a World Class reunion, which we did last Family Day. We held a significant event across two venues, the Heritage event, so that's the grants there. The next one I wanted to speak to was the Ontario Trillium Foundation. It's listed as OTF here. Similarly, the province funded not-for-profit organization, charitable organizations through Ontario Trillium Foundation through their Resilient Grant program. And that was, again, helping not-for-profit organizations build sustainability as a result of what had happened during COVID in previous years. So we were successful in two grants, one that sunset in 2023 and another one that started in 2023. So that variance is a product of those two grants. And so the other section on the revenue side is around fundraising, and there was a significant variance from our budgeted amount in fundraising. What we learned over the year was just a lot of the relationships that we needed to build over the year to be successful in our fundraising. The board had quite a significant conversation, as you can probably imagine, around the fundraising goals, and we were going to land at the end of the year, and we ended up really adjusting our expenses as much as we could when we realized we weren't going to hit our goals. But they really were too aggressive for that first year with that first fundraising staff. It takes between 12 and 18 months to build significant relationships that we thought we were going to be able to build with another body. But we have a lot of, the board has a lot of optimism about 2024 in terms of what was set in that budget, because we actually have a better sense of what's coming in. But for 2023, it was a significant variance of that you can see on the page there. So any questions about the revenue side, would you like me to just through the whole presentation? Okay. So moving on to the expenses, you'll see some of the cuts here. So any of those negative variances on the program side, those were all a direct relationship with the fact that we were not going to meet our goals. And so what do we need to do? We need to cut some expenses. That's an area where we can cut because the staffing side is fairly set, but what we actually deliver out into the community on those expenses, we had another look at those. And so in terms of significance, there's just looking at the performers, some of what we were cutting was in there. We also, when we cut back on some of our activity, you can see that our technical assistance went down, and also our accommodation and travel was all a direct relationship. And I think in terms of significant variances, obviously there's a few others. There are thousands here or there, but the bottom line is a deeper deficit than we were projecting. The board had approved a deficit on the year, but we are looking at a higher deficit than we were expecting. Any questions?
Review. A couple of questions around your grants. I mean, you've done a great job with grants and took advantage of those. Do you have someone who writes your grants? And also, you made reference to hiring somebody to do the fundraising. Wasn't that successful this year, but you're looking forward. That person is remaining on, continuing with his or her work.
That's correct.
And just on that note, if I may add, there are two very distinct opportunities that the board has for reviewing those goals and our ambitious targets that we set. So the development committee has a chance to review that every month. And as Suzanne mentioned, we did make some changes, albeit a little difficult and approved by the board, when we saw the work that was going into those fundraising efforts. But I'm sure all of us around the table recognize the amount of time and relationship building that's necessary in order to see some of the monetary returns for that. And as Suzanne has referenced, it has caused us to say, where can we live within the means of what we think is reasonable? So the board has every degree of confidence that this year will be positive because the foundational groundwork has been laid. We've never had a dedicated individual tasked with that responsibility. And so we are hopeful. I really believe that our numbers are realistic and achievable. And our intent is every month it goes back and says, are we on track? And so I think everyone needs to know that it's not a number that just gets thrown out there. That's it.
I would say contextually, we also, with something that you're probably also hearing in the community, we have sponsors who are waiting for Town Square. So to commit, they've already committed to us, but they say as soon as you're in, we're happy, we're there, we're bringing our money. So we're looking forward to it. That's one of the reasons why I'm so confident about 2024. And again, there was a lot of unknowns when we set the budget for 2023, which would have been set in October of 2022. We all thought that November of 2023 or September or whatever that date was at that time was more possible, but the realities of the project pushes into 2024. So we know that impacted us, and we just needed to deal with that in the way that we need to on our own. So.
On that note, I guess, there's a fundraising plan, targets you developed and all the rest of it. Have you done that kind of by yourself and for yourself as opposed to connecting with the town and others that do that kind of fundraising to make sure we're not cannibalizing each other, that type of thing? Is there any connection between the fundraising here and there?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, we actually have a great relationship with Phil and with Martin at Intercom, and so we've sat down a number of times just to talk about, well, if we're both going for the same funder, let's make sure that we put one proposal forward, or let's talk about who wants to do what, because they have two streams. They have a capital stream and they have an operating stream, and so obviously we're looking at two different pots of money, but they always want to see one proposal. So we haven't done any joint proposals to this date, but that door is wide open, and we again have that conversation. We had that conversation twice in 2023. So I'm hoping that door stays open and that we can continue that, because we don't want to be in your way either. We don't have a capital program, and so if it was something we could do jointly,
Another three. I just noticed the marketing budget is significantly higher in 2024, and that's owing to the bigger job you have to do with looking at programs and services and things that are new to you because of Town Square and the relationship there.
We also have a $25,000 cost to renew our website. That is a direct relationship with Aurora Town Square because of the governance relationships and roles and responsibilities. So since we are not selling our own tickets and we're not taking our registrations to the town, our website has to completely be rebuilt to facilitate how the community interacts with us. So that's a project that we're in process on. So that's a significant cost in there.
Thanks. For me now.
Thanks. Just, you mentioned right off the top that in terms of the displacement cost for Town Square, it's lower than projected. I think you said it was less than it was before. So it was about $129,000. For the 2024 budget, you pegged $120,000 as replacement cost from January to April. Do you anticipate those being significantly less, considering off a full year, it's only $128,000?
don't, because we are unable to run all of our programs that we had planned in spaces that are free of charge to us. So
You wouldn't have that issue this year?
no, because we had a smaller program coming out of COVID. We had a smaller program, but what happened was it was so late understanding when we would have access to the space. We had all of our programs set. So we have been granted access, of course, to the room upstairs for anything that is not child related. We have to be at the library for anything that has child programming that's during the day because it would impact the staff. And given that we, I think that we're on the January to April because it includes our offsite. We have to rent space for the summer to deliver our summer camps. Kind of moving, but we have been given the go ahead to do that just because we don't know when we're gonna get it. So there was a cut in programs as well. So the 175 that was the original budget was based on a normal kind of level of activity, and the 138 was what we saw as of when I prepared this document. But then in reconciling, we found that there were other things that hadn't been allocated yet. So no, I think that we're gonna hit at least 120 and it might be higher, but I don't have that actual number for 2024 yet because it all depends on when we get in. We have a number of additional costs that are coming that are just really unique in 2024 because we were expecting to have town staff customer service at town. So it's we have to then keep staff longer that we didn't anticipate. So all of that is a displacement cost for us.
Right, and then in theory, in 2025, that whatever that revenue number is,
Yeah,
will be reflected in the revenues in your programs, right?
that's correct. Yeah, we're having a lot of success already in 2024, so we'll do what we
More
can here,
success,
but
better.
that's right. It's growing our audience and growing that demand that we need to reach the 250 seats. But it's, the cost of the programs, we always have to offset that. But I mean, this number in particular is direct costs. We reconcile that. I guess the programs that we are advocating there.
Just in terms of a contingency, so, I share your optimism with regards to your fundraising goals. However, at the same time, it's a risk, for sure. I mean, you were $213,000 short this year. You slightly increased it for next year, so it's an associated risk. And I know you were somewhat, but you talked about cutting expenditures, but really, expenditures were only $60,000 less than budget. Shortfall was $200,000 from a fundraising perspective, so there's still a gap there. What are the contingency plans? Because while I hear you say that from month to month you have an update, some of your costs are relatively fixed costs. There's not an ability for you to pivot quickly to make a lot of changes. So, do you have any contingency plans should your projections fall well short again this year?
In terms of it's never a expense control issue when it comes to not-for-profits. We're very, very tight to the line, but we also know where some of those expenses might be able to move. And in terms of the granting piece, there's grants that we have access to that are going to take some of the pressure off of our fundraising, but haven't been put in the budget. So
you do have contingency plans
do,
to help
yeah.
mitigate
Exactly.
or blunt
Way to go
whatever
in.
that shuffle. I mean, listen, we all are hopeful that you exceed your goals, but it's good from I guess a fiduciary perspective just to ensure that you always plan for the what ifs as well.
That's right.
Yep, that's it. Oh, actually, I did have one last question. I was curious about something. Last line: earn revenues leveraging by town investment. You said you have $825,959 or 61%. So you don't take into account the displacement costs that the town gives you, or how does that work?
That's true. That was,
'Cause when I
it's
did
just
that-
based on the base. It has actually, that figure has always just been based on the base. If we get extra project funding or anything, it wasn't put into that.
So regardless, even if the town's the one giving you the money, you don't take that into consideration, you just look at the base funding number.
Well, the displacement costs just cover the expenses of displacement. They don't actually leverage anything. Yeah, we haven't we certainly haven't shown that number in there, so.
So I just wanted,
you
that's
know,
why I just wanted to
it's-
be clear the understanding of how you were doing it, right?
Yeah, the provision of cultural services talks about that particular KPI and talks about the base amount and what is, but what I have done is included the historical top up so that it's not just the base in that number.
Yes, it's the 530.
Yeah, exactly, it's not just the base, but it's prescribed by that KPI, but you're right, there's other funds that we received for Kaleidoscope in the schools and also our displacement costs.
Yeah, I guess, because then I look at, next year and the amount of money that's flowing back and forth, and it gets a little bit more muddier. Using that metrics, because the town is providing significantly more than the 549, but you're really only counting that and then using that as the percentage. So it just, maybe there's some thought too about whether that's a valuable metric or not, because it's not necessarily crystal clear.
Well, and in discussions with staff about our agreement and how we move forward with that, we are proposing new metrics that are what we can control and actually make more sense based on the new model. So that one isn't in there anymore just because it doesn't make the same amount of sense, but maybe there's another metric that is important, so.
Thank you. And just as Councillor Thompson mentioned about the fundraising, I also had a question about your plans with respect to grants, because the problem with grants is they expire and they either have to be replaced or you have to adjust your spending. How are you working on that? Because the amount of money you've done very well in grants, but go ahead, go away, as they always do. What's the plans?
So you can so you can see here that we already are seeing that happen in 2024, and that's because we budget for the amount that we expect is normal and ongoing for us on ongoing relationships with funders. Also grants that we know we've received. So really, it's budgeting based on what we know and have a really high confidence of in the granting world. But we have access to other funding that we can still apply for. It's a lot less than it was through COVID, obviously, you can see the numbers here. But in 2024, we're back to where we're a little bit higher because we can hire more students on the federal side, but we're back to where we were in 2019. So it's just we had this really strange blip because we were really supported by federal, provincial, and municipal funding to get us through COVID. So we do still have OTF, the Ontario Children Foundation is still supporting us through the Kaleidoscope in Schools program, and that'll last until 2025. And in 2025, which you would see in our 3-year budget, we have an increase in our fundraising because we have to replace those dollars or really have a look at the program. And if that's the other side of that particular program, because it's well funded at the moment and being held up by that, we want to look at, and really investigate, review that program in 2025 to say, well, what is it that we can do? What can we do with the funding that we receive? Perhaps we're not out to the 52 schools that we are now. We will always want to look at the 16 schools in Aurora. That's going to always be our base, but perhaps we have to revisit how we do it, how it gets funded, what other avenues we can go down, how we can talk to the school boards who have received this benefit for the last 3 years and how they might participate, and maybe cut it back if we can't fund it appropriately beyond that.
Last question. So absolutely, the Cultural Center is a valued partner. I know that we had some challenges, shall we say, in the first part of last year as we were working through some things. How's the working relationship then?
Fantastic. If I can have one word, that would be it. I think it's just strengthened the relationship, and I think big kudos certainly to Suzanne and to the staff here. I think that I can't underscore the importance of the activity that they went through to establish a shared vision of what do we want and how are we committing to the success of what we're looking at. And to be honest with you, Michael, it's been like night and day.
Let's be
I commend everyone. Commend everyone that was involved in getting us to where we are right now. I think it's just brought such excitement to the board because they've heard that message very clearly. And I think that's just everybody's rekindled to say, let's go.
But then we all want the same thing,
Yes.
success, so, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. We did go through a lot of stuff, and everyone did a great job, so I think we're all looking forward to swearing you guys back to your rightful home and all the excitement that's going to ensue once the opening happens.
We're there.
Absolutely. All right, so motion to receive and comments regarding the budget review of the ACC be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Michael, Ron, all in favor, opposed, that carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys get to go home and we get to stay until probably 1 a.m. So.
Thank you. We have programs upstairs tonight, so we have your staff here.
Enjoy. Thanks for
How
having
come you
us.
couldn't let me in?
Oh,
Came on the back.
I told you not to let anyone in that we don't know. You need to meet my staff. Thank you.
Thanks.
New business. I'll let it. If we were at council, I would, because it's not new business, but we're here, it's relaxed or what.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I blew through that. All I was saying is since we didn't have the 2023s for Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, will that come back even if it's received? Because
We can follow up with them and.
just to close the loop on it.
Okay. Anything else?
Jason will add it to his work plan.
Anything else? Michael, any new business? Okay, motion to adjourn. Go on, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. I always forget who I said last time for the motion.